Um, we are Best Director, and we're very excited to be here today on Facebook Live, sharing our first Through Her Lens event. This will be a series that we are just launching this year. We are Best Director. I am one of the co-chairs, along with Jen Derwickson Peacock and Etta Benjical, who you'll be meeting in a moment. And we are a grassroots women director advocacy group. Our collective of 50 female DGA members formed in 2018 after yet again no female directors were nominated for a DGA award. We got tired of seeing that and we got busy. And when I say DGA award, I mean specifically in the best feature and best first time film categories. We came together, a group of DGA directors, and we recognized that too few women are nominated for Film and Television Director Awards. And we created a mission to change that. We got busy, and for the last 3 seasons, we have put our heads together and tried to amplify our sister directors. So I'd ask all the DGA members who are watching and with us today on Facebook Live, please watch female director films and consider and vote for women. When we come together, we can be the rising tide that floats boats. We are so excited today to have our first event, to have author Nina Menkes discussing Rada Blanc and Emerald Fennell's cinematic point of view, and present her feature, talk about her feature documentary that's coming out soon called Brainwashed. This is going to be an amazing event. Nina is incredible. I'm so excited to see what she has to say and to listen to her. And without delaying any further, I'd like to introduce my fellow co-chair, one of my co-chairs on Best Director, Director Etta Benjical. Etta?
Oh, great. Thank you, Paige, and thank you everyone for being here. I have the pleasure of introducing director Gwen Wynn. She is a quadruple, whatever the next level is, threat. She's a director, producer, screenwriter. She also crosses many mediums. She does film, she's a theater director, she works in dramatic features and documentary. So she has kind of done it all and seen it all. She champions untold provocative stories. She seeks unheard and new talent and emphasizes marginalized narratives to inspire action and change through her production company, Apricot Films. And she also created a funding initiative called the EOS World Fund, who is actually sponsoring this talk today. And a few words about the EOS World Fund is they cultivate and support established and emerging visionary female and minority artists around the world. By identifying and funding a curated, hand-picked group of projects, EOS World Fund contributes to a new era of innovative and inspired storytelling through unique, marginalized, and female points of view. And one of these female points of view is the subject of our discussion today. So thank you, Gwen.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a lovely introduction. So I'm thrilled to be with all my sisters and very excited to have Nina Menkes with us. And before we launch into talking about Rada Blanc's film and Emerald Fennell's film, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about Nina, because she is a legacy already. And all of us stand on her shoulders for what she has already achieved in filmmaking. So Nina is considered a cinematic feminist pioneer and one of America's foremost independent filmmakers. She has been shown at Sundance, at the Berlani, at the Cannes, at Rotterdam, in Toronto, at the British Film Institute, so many, Whitney Museum of American Art at MoMA in New York, and at LACMA in LA. And the Los Angeles Times has called Nina brilliant, one of the most provocative artists in film today. And her body of work has been cited as controversial, intense, and visually stunning by sight and sound. And Menkes sometimes refers to herself as a witch. And Dennis Slim, writing in the New York Times, called Nina Menkes a cinematic sorceress of the self. Now, something I find really exciting is we usually see brothers working in cinema. Nina has been closely working with her sister Tinka Menkes, who was both her actress and creative collaborator. And Nina loves to credit her sister Tinka with many of her key radical aspects that you will see and have seen in her work. Now, Nina, just historically, I think this is also very important to mention, is she was one of the first women to present a feature film at Sundance Film Festival, Queen of Diamonds, in 1991. And it was in dramatic competition. And very interestingly, it was also there with Julie Dash's Daughters of the Dust and Todd Haynes's Poison. This is in 1991. And other films in 1991 at Sundance are, like these, considered classics now. So gosh, Nina's won so many awards. And I want to say that, I don't want to say at long last, but what's been very exciting is that the Academy of Motion Pictures Archives has been restoring Nina's early work. And you will soon and actually be able to find some of Nina's films on Criterion Films. George Lucas's foundation and Martin Scorsese's foundation have supported the restoration of her films. Arbalos actually re-released Queen of Diamonds in 2019. And so imagine in 1991 was when Nina's Queen of Diamonds came out at Sundance. And it wasn't until 2019 that the New York Times reviewed her film. And the re-release of Nina's critical hit was hailed as a modern masterpiece and selected in 2019 as one of the year's top 10 films by Artforum magazine. So that gives you a little background about this incredible auteur. So Nina has directed 7 features, I believe that's right. And she has an upcoming feature, Brainwashed, which will be her 8th production. And Brainwashed is a documentary that is exploring how shot design in our greatest movies by our considered A-list directors have been contributing to diminishing women, not simply reducing a woman's status in the world as a mere sexual object, but Nina contends that these great films by what we perceive as great directors have been rendering women and minorities as individuals that can be violated. Now that's a radical statement. So with that, I'm going to launch into asking Nina a question that pertain to Radha and Emerald's films. So Nina, women are plagued by violence, sexual abuse, and positions of low status and low incomes in the workplace. And in your upcoming movie, Brainwashed, you're using these 2 films, and you are asserting that shot design used in Hollywood in the past, actually probably for the last 100 years, contributes to this systemic problem. So for the benefit of our audience, I was wondering if you could give an example of how the image of the objectified woman has diminished women and corroded a woman's agency to acquire power and authority in Western society.
Yeah, I mean, there's sadly, there's, thousands of examples. And in my film Brainwashed, which we hope to have finished, by the end of the summer, we have like over 100, includes over 100 film clips. And that's like, in order to get to that 100 film clips, I had to eliminate, hundreds of film clips. So there's just so many examples, but I'll give 2 examples that are kind of you know, startling. One is Robert Altman's Shortcuts. You know, Robert Altman is seen as a master filmmaker, and he's revered around the world. And there's one scene that's just so, you know, jaw-dropping. You may recall it from Shortcuts, where Julianne Moore is talking to her significant other in a scene, and the scene is set up so that this guy, I forget his name, but the male character is looking at Julianne Moore, and we see his face, and it's his perspective, and then we get his point of view on her, and she's standing there, she's in the object position, and they're having a conversation. Okay, that's okay. But then you look at the costume that she's wearing, and I just have to describe it to you because we can't show film clips here on Facebook Live, but she's wearing a t-shirt, a white t-shirt, and the costume designer, it looks like he took scissors and he cut out sort of a U shape from the front of the t-shirt so that you can see her genitals and her pubic hair, because she's not wearing any underwear. It's like a very long t-shirt with this cutout to reveal her pubic hair. And then when she turns around, you see there's an identical cutout in the back to reveal her derriere. This is incredible, because who is listening to the dialogue? Everybody is focusing on everyone is focusing on the cutout part of the t-shirt and what it's revealing. And she didn't have underwear on, you know. Now somebody made a decision how to shoot that scene. The director, in consultation with the costume designer in this case, created a character that might have been kind of interesting or might have some agency, but because of how she's positioned as the object of this guy's gaze, we get his face and we get her body on display with no underwear, with a cutout, literally a cutout. Someone took scissors and cut it out, so we see her pubic hair in the front, and when she swivels, we see her derriere in the back. It's so unbelievable. Okay, so that's an example from 1994. You know, and let's give an outrageous example from 2017, Blade Runner 2049. The main female character is literally the lead female character, Ana de Armas. You know, she plays opposite Ryan Gosling, right? She is not even human. She's a hologram, and her name, and she's a naked hologram most of the time. Her name in that film, the name of her character is Joy, but they spelled it J-O-I. Mm-hmm. And J-O-I in porn culture stands for jerk off instructions. That's the name of the main character. So, you know, you think about these films that had millions of dollars in advertising, and, you know, who knows what, I don't know what the budget of Shortcuts was, but certainly the budget was higher than any budget I've ever gotten in my life. And, you know, 2049, that was probably $1 million.
So
million or something.
It's really interesting, because when we get these two female directors, Radha and Emerald, they want pleasure, but the male is not exploited or shown through their lens the way that these other directors will display women. And I want to talk about how when Radha is with Dee, okay, in the 40-year-old version, it's really interesting how these two directors are starting to subvert the male gaze. And we'll get back to like being specific about the male gaze. Radha looks at the audience when Dee goes, "I'll give you anything you want." And then we move into that love scene. And she's obviously enjoying it. And why is that not exploitative versus what those other two movies that you describe?
Well, the bottom line, I mean, there's a lot to say about that, but to start with the most basic issue, the most basic issue is the difference between a subject and an object. And this is something that people are sometimes confused about.
Yeah.
You know, we've all heard the phrase, the objectification of women, and we've all heard it a million times. And we sort of know that it generally refers to some babe in a bikini, you know, lying on a car or whatever. But if you just take a second to remember what subject and object really means. So you have, like, in an English sentence, you know, the cat eats the mouse. The cat is the subject of the sentence, and he's eating the mouse. The mouse is the object. The mouse is acted upon. The mouse is not the one with agency in that sentence. You know, and similarly, the man sees the woman. The man is the subject. He is looking at or acting upon a woman object. That is the structure of an English sentence. So how do you translate the structure of that English sentence into visual language is what Brainwashed, my film, is about. But basically we do it with what's known as a POV shot, right? So everybody who's listening is probably in the film world, and you know exactly what that looks like. You know, you have, for example, over the shoulder shot of some guy's head, and then you cut to something over there, and we know that this guy is looking at her. So if someone is positioned as an object in terms of shot design, so it's not only script and dialogue and character, it's also shot design. Okay, so what do you have in Radha's film, for example? You have, first of all, the subject of the film is Radha herself. She's a woman. She's obviously the subject on every single level in that film. She's always in the subject position. And when we go to the sex scene, first of all, as Gwen pointed out, yes, she, you know, he said, you know, I'll do anything you want, or whatever he says. And she sort of, you know, she hears that and she kind of knows what he means. And he's offering something to her. She, at that moment, you know, breaks the fourth wall, looks forward. She's not becoming his object. She stays in the subject position. She goes even further than that. She goes all the way to, like, hey, she's talking to you. She's talking to the audience. She's saying, hey, did you hear what he said? Do you know what he means? That's sort of the implication. She is, as subject, not only not in the object position, but she's even breaking the fourth wall. And that ties to something that Agnes Varda, the great film director who we lost, I think last year, maybe it was 2 years ago. She said, the first feminist act is looking. She says, you know, fine, you may have looked at me, you know, you may keep looking at me, but I'm going to look back. So that feminist moment of looking back disrupts the position of the object, who is, as Laura Mulvey told us in 1975 and still is true today, generally occupies the position in cinema of to be looked at-ness. That was Laura Mulvey's phrase, and it's still true today, like almost all the time, but it's not true in Radha's film. So for example, when she goes to that sex scene, you have the camera is on her face, and then it looks like the guy is, you know, possibly giving her oral sex or something like that. He's off screen. The camera is on her face, on her experience. It doesn't pan over her body. It doesn't linger on her naked breasts. In fact, if I believe, it looks like she's actually wearing a shirt. So she's made a conscious decision not to be there on display and to express something that has to do with her feelings and her emotion, and doesn't have to do with what size or shape or angle her breasts may be in any given moment, or you know what I mean. So that is an example that I include in Brainwash because it's such a classically wonderful example of a, you know, sort of positive sex scene. She's having a positive experience, but she's not objectified.
So let's look at Emerald with what you're just saying. Let's look at Emerald's film, The Promising Young Woman. So there's that scene when the audience begins to get an idea that she's actually luring her victim into her lair. We don't really know that yet. And she breaks the fourth wall, just the way that Radha does, and looks at the fourth wall or looks at the audience, and then she says to the guy that is trying to give her oral sex, what are you doing? And will you talk about, like, again, like how this director is defying the male gaze, and how her film is defying the male gaze?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said it yourself. I mean, first of all, we have, again, a woman character who is in the subject position, to be really basic. I mean, it's really basic, but it's really important. She's in the subject position. And with the camera angles, she's also placed into the subject position because you see her point of view of his face. So, you know, there's that shot where her legs are up. He's probably about to rape her is what we're kind of set up to think. And we're set up to think that she's very drunk and she's about to get raped. And then she turns the tables on this guy and she turns the tables on the audience. And the director turns the tables on us because we're so used to seeing this kind of thing. And suddenly we get the woman's point of view on the guy, which is the opposite of what we usually get. And then, like you said, it cuts to her. I don't know if she actually is staring right at the camera, but she's staring. If she's not right at the camera, she's like, you know, she's 2 inches off right at the camera. She is basically saying it to the audience. So she's very similar to the Radha film, that at that moment where she would be in the ultimate objectified position, she's smashing that. She's smashing it with story, with character, and with shot design.
So, oops, sorry about that. So, A Promising Young Woman is really fascinating for a lot of reasons, because to tell this story, she also has to dress up as a stereotype, especially towards the end of the movie when she dresses up as a nurse and a stripper. And her intention is she wants to kill this rapist that raped her friend. And I'm wondering if, I'll just say it, if it's still difficult to subvert the male gaze, because I can't think of any movies commercially that ultimately the protagonist wins. Like in Thelma and Louise, they commit suicide. In their car, they go over a cliff, and our protagonist in A Promising Young Woman dies. And it's also interesting in Radha's film, one of her themes is that women, or she has not been able, as a Black woman, has not been able to have her voice. I guess FYOV is find your own voice, fuck you old vultures, 40-year-old version, I'm out. And does this protagonist in that story win because she got to say that, even though she compromised? So I'm just wondering, where are we in being able to kind of change cinema language. I mean, because that's what we're, obviously, I think so many filmmakers, men as well, are trying to change this very biased points of view that are in cinema.
Well, I mean, I know that, you know, one could say that in Promising Young Woman, the fact that she's murdered at the end kind of undermines the empowering aspect of the story. I mean, I definitely see that point, and that could be true, although they, you know, they make it very clear that she sort of has the last word, right, with the little text messages or the emails or whatever that she sent at the end. She, you know, she got him, right. She managed to kind of, you know, have the last laugh. But is it significant that she was killed? Yes, you know, that what would have happened if that film, if she had like gotten away with it and gone on a murder spree? I don't know. I think that we can't dismiss the whole film because she's killed at the end. I think that you could also read that as, you know, like we're at a place in history where you can't quite get away with unadulterated rage. You know, maybe that's where we're at right now regarding these issues of rape and sexual assault.
Talk about female rage, and how does that come into your slot, into your movie, Brainwashed?
Well, you know, women have been making films about female rage for decades. It's not new. What is new is that you're seeing it in the mainstream. You know, what is new is that a film like Promising Young Woman, that, you know, a few years ago, even I would say, you know, as like even 5 years ago, might have been Sundance at midnight kind of fare, is now nominated for you know, an Academy Award for you know, in the highest category, right? Is it both Best Director and Best Picture for Promising Young Woman? I believe. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. So it's I mean, that to me is incredible. That you have that level of rage and that level of, you know, expressing the outrage at this rape culture that we've been living in for so long, and then have that go into the mainstream. This is not to say that women have not been furious for decades and decades and decades. It's just that that rage has been kept out of the mainstream. And it's just been kept out of these unmainstream too, you know. It's, you know, it's, I mean, all the film festivals that show sort of more independent work have also been very skewed to the male perspective for decades, right? But, you know, so if you want to talk specifically, like an example would be Fences with Viola Davis and Denzel Washington. Right. You know, there's that famous scene where she's in a rage and she's yelling at Denzel Washington. And I looked at that scene as a possible inclusion in my film Brainwashed, and I couldn't use it. And the reason I couldn't use it is because the way that that scene is shot is that you have the entire scene is from his point of view. Here she's raging away, but the shot design, you know, we can't show clips on this Facebook Live, but the shot design is, it's all over the shoulder from him, and his shoulder and his head blocks a piece of the screen, so that you understand that you are experiencing this woman mediated through this man's experience of her. He's in the subject position, she's in the object position. So that's what you do not have in Radha's film, and what you do not have in Emerald's film is the story is not mediated through the male experience.
Mm, mm. I'm wondering if we can show your sizzle reel for Brainwashed. I think we will be able to, because it'd be great to orient the audience with what you're also trying to show and highlight. Okay.
Okay, this is a 4 minutes, so just FYI.
Right. Okay. So yeah,
but it does show. It does show like a lot of the key points that I'm trying to talk about here. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's only 30 seconds, but
it's 30 seconds. Okay.
Yeah, but it's something. Can we play the 4? Yeah, we can play the 4 minutes. We're going to play 4 minutes, Nina, and then we'll have questions and answers after this.
Is there sound?
Yeah. Sorry.
I don't hear sound, but
I'm trying to mute myself. Let's see.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
It's not just script and dialogue. It's not just the characters. What I want to talk about today is shot design. And shot design is the meta message that gets us in our gut and affects our lives on multiple levels.
whoops, it froze.
On the steps of the red carpet stand 82 women, representing the number of female directors whose films have screened in competition here since 1946. Director Nina Menkes argues we need to change cinema itself, adding that in our favourite films, women are objectified and ultimately disempowered.
Male actors and female actors are shot completely differently. The man is the subject, the man has agency, the woman is looked at.
The accessories are even cuter.
When we get a shape like this, it means that this guy is looking at this person over here.
Haven't I seen you somewhere before? Well, it doesn't matter.
Fragmented body parts. Even with a feminist storyline. Pans, you get body pans, horizontal body pans, vertical body pans. Slow-mo is a way to emphasize. And of course, with men, when do you get slow-mo? Action military, right? Men get sort of a more embodied 3D lighting, and women get flat or 2D lighting or fuzzy lighting or some other form of fantasy lighting. Let's check how audio is gendered in this scene with Robert De Niro. And they're sitting way over here on the side of the pool, and Vicky is far away from them, and that's why we don't hear her, right? Or maybe not right, because how come we hear very clearly these two guys who are sitting right next to Vicky?
You were the first person who gave me the language to understand what I was feeling, because just growing up, I grew up on like Disney movies, Disney princesses. There was always that, what you just said, this weird feeling where I would see female characters and it was like a mixture of like, do I want to be them? Do I want to compete with them?
Heterosexual male actors are almost never shot using these techniques. This is a system of shot design that disempowers women and ties into the epidemic of sexual harassment and assault, as well as the employment discrimination that we face. And I call it the bedrock language of rape culture.
you know, I'm like, I have a 94-minute film, but like it really gets out a lot of this 4-minute trailer. Gwen, we can't hear you. Unmute.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it's really shocking. And I've seen this many times, and I've seen your discussion, and it just always hits me, because what I love is how you are actually saying that this systemic problem that is in our society actually has roots in the cinema that has been created over generations. And what's exciting right now is that we are seeing filmmakers, men too, that are changing the way they shoot and changing storyline and points of view. And we see that in Emerald and Radha's film, which is extraordinary, and they are mainstream. So I'm curious, when did you become like enlightened, or when did you come out of this trance of being brainwashed by how to shoot women, how to shoot men? When did it really hit you?
Well, I mean, I never came out of the trance because I was never in the trance. I just personally always had a revulsion for that kind of photography, and I didn't like those films. I couldn't maybe articulate why. I would just sort of go like, don't like it. And it took some time for me. I mean, I would say like it's sexist, but I wouldn't necessarily be able to say why or be specific. And then like, quite a bit later in my life, it was, the person who really helped me get to a higher level in terms of being able to express what I'm talking about in a specific way, instead of just saying like, I hate that film, which is what I used to say, was Professor Marcia Kinder at the USC Film School. I actually was teaching at the USC Film School in the production side, and she invited me to come co-teach a class with her on gender and cinema. And so there I was supposed to be the production teacher, but I was like really kind of like a student as far as the critical studies side, because I had never read any of these things. And Marcia Kinder is the kind of person who gives you this much reading every week. And so I learned a way of speaking about these things that was more specific. And then because I am a filmmaker, it started to be easy for me to articulate these points in terms of shot design, because when you read film theory, a lot of times it's all psychoanalytic, and there's all these hard words that, can be overwhelming, but it's, so what I'm doing in Brainwashed, I'm really not going down that long theoretical, psychoanalytic road. I'm just saying like, look, very easy, framing, point of view, camera movement. It's really basic, and you can see it on, in like everywhere. Is there questions?
Oh yeah, we should let's open this up to the audience and get some questions.
I can ask them for you if you want, Gwen. I can see them coming in, or do you have them in front of you?
Why don't you go ahead and you can.
Okay. So let me ask you, from Jenna, she's asking, how do you decide what to include in the edit when there are literally millions of popular films and TV with this style of shooting? I think she's referring to your film.
Oh, I get it. Yeah. Well, it was challenging. I mean, I had to, you're right. I mean, what do we include? Well, I tried to, first of all, include the gods of cinema. So, Godard and Martin Scorsese and Spike Lee and Sofia Coppola. You don't have to be a man to do this. There's sort of big names, Wim Wenders, I don't have them all at the tip of my tongue, but, like people that we have been taught in film school, they teach, and even if you don't go to film school, you get this through life. You know, these people are master filmmakers, and you better watch their film to find out what they're doing. So I try to focus on either really famous directors or on like cult classic films. So that's, you know, to point out that these films that are our favorites, you know, might have an underlying message that's not so fabulous.
It's so interesting, like just growing up in, you know, the Bond film era. I mean, I think I was literally brainwashed, speaking to the title of your film. I can't unsee that. And we just thought it was normal. So it's so eye-opening. Someone here is asking, let's see, Jessica is saying, how do we frame? Great question.
Well, that is something that you can't answer in 1 second or less, but I would suggest that you think about what that character is feeling instead of thinking about how that character looks, you know. So if you think about, like, you know, to go back to the Rhoda Blank film, what happens if we focus on what she's feeling in that sex scene? We're focusing on her face. We're getting what she's feeling. We're not getting her body parts. You know, if the focus is on how the woman looks and how her body part looks, that's when the woman is pushed into this extreme objectified position. But what if we thought about, you know, how does she feel? What's she going through? What's her experience? What are her emotions? How can I show her emotion with a camera? Right? Do I show her emotion by focusing on her derriere? Probably not. Not the best shot choice.
Yeah, so true. And I'm getting a lot of this question, and Kate Reese Davis is with us, and she's asking, where and when can we see Brainwashed?
Oh, well, we're in post-production right now, and I'm going to be, you know, submitting it to film festivals pretty soon, and so I hope we'll be able to see the actual film by the end of the year, fall, and by the end of the year it should be out there for you. In the meantime, at Brainwashed Movie on Instagram.
I have a quick question. Do you think we will be ever able to completely subvert the male gaze and make money at the box office?
Well, you know, that the money thing is pretty interesting because, you know, the way that films make money has to do a lot with the advertising budget of that film. And it's well known that women's films have historically, first of all, never gotten a distribution deal in the first place. And if they did get a distribution deal, they didn't get the kind of money and the kind of financing in advertisements, or it's opened in much less theaters. So it's very hard to know, you know, like what would happen if one of my films got $100 million advertising budget behind it? Would everybody see it? Yeah, they probably would, you know? So we don't know, you know, the way that you would have to judge that is if you would take a film like 40-year-old version, and then you would take Blade Runner 2049 and give both those films the identical amount of screens and the identical amount of advertising dollars, and then tell me which one is going to make money. I bet if Rhoda Blank's film had the same kind of advertising budget, I bet she would make more money than 2049 with JOI, jerk off instructions.
I believe you. I would love to see that.
Yeah, but you know, we never get to find out because you're in the system where the financial push is not going to, you know, give a chance most of the time to these people.
Well, and it's a really interesting problem is that if you don't have guns or bombs or a superhero in a movie, you're not going to get the budget. a decent budget, or forget about getting an advertising budget. And also traditionally female points of view have not been cherished as something to back. So it is beginning to change.
There are a couple more questions. Do you mind if I jump in and ask them, Gwen, from our okay. So does Nina have lectures online somewhere? This is from Maria Burton, one of the co-chairs of the Women's Steering Committee at the DGA. Does Nina have some lectures online somewhere where we can also see clips of the films that you discuss?
Well, because we're working on the feature film version of my lecture, I have actually not agreed to have my lecture online. But I do give the lecture in person. So if you're interested, get in touch with Gwen or Paige, and you know, we could discuss that. But yeah, we're trying to, you know, sort of save up all that great energy and all that curiosity for the release of our film.
I had a quick question myself, and I asked this to Gwen yesterday. She didn't know the answer, and we thought it would be interesting to ask you. You know, the shot in the Breakfast Club, I think it is, of Molly Ringwald's vagina, pantied vagina, for lack of a better term. How is it different when Emerald Fennell does a similar shot? Because I can't remember, but I remember in the opening sequence, there is the shot of her underwear and her legs are slightly spread open. Why is that, and how is that different from the Breakfast shot, in your opinion?
Okay, I need to, I mean, I've seen the film, obviously. I don't remember that shot. I would need to take a look at it. But it's possible. I mean, I'm saying this without a memory of the scene. It's most likely not a man looking cut to, or is it?
Well, are you talking about the Breakfast Club shot?
No, the Promising Young Woman.
Okay, so I'm not sure about that, but like, okay, so let's say you wanted to, as a woman director, you wanted to create a shot where a man is looking up a woman's skirt, because that's part of your story. It's your female rage story. You want to do it from a feminist directorial point of view. How would you frame that shot to?
Well, yeah, well, you know, this came up with Bombshell, you know, because that scene I know really well, so I could discuss that one for a fast second, because I have that scene in my film, so I've, you know, looked at it 1,000 times. But there you've got that scene, and it's in the trailer too, where the old guy is harassing this woman, and they give us his point of view on her underwear, and then it pans up and down, so we get the camera movement, we get the body pan, and we get the fragmented body from his point of view, even though the scene is supposed to be about her trauma. Okay, so I asked Catherine Hardwick, who, for example, who we interviewed for Brainwashed, you know, how would you have shot that scene? And, you know, and she said, well, you know, you could have just stayed on her face and gotten her experience, or you could have had her point of view on him. You know, I mean, there are different ways to shoot that scene, but what Paige is saying is like, what if a woman wants to show this horrible perspective of the guy on the underwear, and somehow that is going to work into a feminist storyline? I would really have to see it. I'm sorry, Paige, if you had told me in advance, I would have rewatched that scene from the beginning. Okay. I can't remember it, but I think that you know, it's something you might want to think long and hard about. Like, do I really want to reproduce that kind of shot design, seeing as what the historical meaning of those kind of shots are? You know, Audre Lorde, the poet, she said, you can't use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house, you know? So if you're gonna do a sexual assault scene, what if you don't show the close-up on the girl's underwear? What if you just really get into her experience? Her experience is not a close-up on her underwear from looking like that, you know?
I just want to say that your images have blown my mind, and that you really, Nina, I just want to say to the audience, is really one of our great treasures. It's 16 hours. And it's been a real privilege to both work with you and have you here. And And Best Director is so thrilled that you joined us, and I'll hand this over to
Thank you. I know we're out of time, so I would just like to say that a few of my films are streaming on Criterion. You can see them there, and you know, we're on Instagram, as they say.
What are the films called? Tell us the films.
If you look at it under my name, Nina Menkes, on Criterion, there's a whole section of my work, and you know, it'd be great if you check it out.
And how can everyone follow you and stay in touch with you?
At Menkes Film, at Brainwashed Movie.
Awesome. Well, this was too short. I mean, I feel like we just began, and I so thank you for doing this. Gwen, thank you for producing this. And Gwen, thank you and the EOS World Fund for everything you do to illuminate women. We are so thrilled to have you, Nina, and you, Gwen, as part of our committee, very active part of our committee and our sponsor. I think we have to do this again. So thank you so much for everyone for attending.